Conversation for Conservation. It's episode number 2. And I'm so glad you're joining me today. Thank you so much. This is something that I've been thinking about for a long time and actually was kind of pushed into the podcast world thanks to my friend Brett Davis at IQ Podcasts. And I'm really glad that I have taken this step to do this because I have the Heroes Edition today. And my 2 special guests, and I say very special guests, are 2 of my heroes. And I'm really happy to say that they're in my life. They're close in my life. And I would like to introduce my friend Mike Veale, who is founder and president of Global Conservation Force. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Co. Thanks for having me on.
Of course, I call him my brother from another mother. And then my sister at arms, Victory Wallace. Victory Wallace is one of my closest friends for many reasons. Not only is she a hero of mine, but she is also the owner of Zacomo Safari and a co-founder of Nasefu Wildlife. So we are doing this thing in life together, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I wouldn't want to go into this adventure with anybody else. So say hi, Miss Victory.
Hi, Co. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So I'm going to be talking to both of you. And at the end, we're going to all get together and solve all the world's problems. In one episode. In 10 minutes, we will have everything dialed in. But Mike, I'm going to start with you. Again, I'm really happy you're here. And Mike and I met years ago when we were at an event in Balboa Park. And we were meeting everybody. And all of a sudden, this guy says, you know what? I'm supposed to meet you. I'm like, oh, well, okay. And so he introduced himself. And I'm like, you know what? I am supposed to meet you. And Mike Veale is this amazing guy who has an incredible background working with animals and then seeing something and then saying, you know what? I've got to do something about this. I'm going to make a life change here and I'm going to tackle it. So Mike, take us back. You're growing up. You love wildlife. You're a Boy Scout. You get into the world of conservation and loving life. You worked with our friends at Lions, Tigers, and Bears, one of my other heroes, Bobby Brink. So take us through the step, how you founded this amazing global foundation.
Absolutely. So, I mean, basically throughout my childhood, I was always outside and actively involved in conservation projects that weren't really huge things at the time. It was just more like, scouts and helping out local reserves, and then through middle school and high school, getting into the clubs and doing more of that stuff. And then it was the start of the wildlife conservation stuff for me was right in that high school time frame where I wanted to really be serious about it. So coupled that with scouting and work life stuff that I was starting to work on already, I started volunteering as many things as I could. And that led me up to becoming a senior mammal keeper at San Diego, and then working with the northern white rhinos and working with many different rhinos. I've actually worked with all species of rhinos at this point, whether it was in the field or in managed facilities. And in 2012, because I was working with rhinos, I was really in touch with everything happening in the
greatest
field.
job ever, by the way. You've got the greatest. It's the greatest job ever. I'm working with rhinos. Oh my God, greatest job ever.
It's so cool. So yeah, we were tied into multiple conferences and field work and conservation projects and keeper-based fundraisers back then, and things started to escalate really quickly. And hearing the numbers directly from the people in the field, I started to panic because things were changing very quickly. And not all of the social media platforms we have now were as live and used at that time. So it was like, wow, we got to start doing something. People need to know. And so I had a lot of years under my belt working in conservation and in wildlife care, doing things from rehab and being a vet technician to being a wildlife care specialist with exotic wildlife. And I'd also been working as a ranger part-time after my job at the park here in Southern California.
Stop right there. So back it up. So you are working with San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And then you said, you know what? I'm going to get trained as a ranger in South Africa at Kruger,
Yep.
because that's what we all do in life, say, I'm just going to go get trained in South Africa as a ranger. I mean, seriously, you kind of walk through it like you're going to Vaughn's. This is a big thing. This is something that you are altering your life for the greater good, to get more skills and to be more effective in the field. So you trek on over to South Africa and get trained.
Yeah. And once I left, I had to sell everything I had. I didn't have any financial backers or anything like that. But a group of my friends hosted like a backyard fundraiser, and it ended up covering my plane ticket, which was nice. But moved out of my place, sold all of my stuff, kept a few things for when I came back. And then, I went head like just dove straight into it, basically in the field. Peak area of the crisis for rhino poaching and all sorts of other poaching, and peak timeline of the poaching crisis. Got trained by guys, luckily, at the kind of the threshold of guys who were in the Rhodesian Bush War and guys who also had been in previous high-scale poaching situations for a long time before, in different like timelines. They'd escalated at different generations. They had a lot of experience. I went through training, and I had to be under them for the training course, which is really rough. But I'm very thankful for it, because we came out really ready for it, and we were active duty during training, but then we were like head deep into it when we came out of it. And, I saw a lot of destruction firsthand. And one of the things I was realizing again at that point was there are conservation efforts at this point in time, but they were very localized, and working across such a giant scheme of wildlife protection, there wasn't enough shared resources or equipment or even experience. The experience was very localized for the guys who had hit the real heavy stuff. So after being there for quite some time, I had to come back home and basically got some stuff settled here. And becoming a ranger was like my final step before I wanted to launch Global Conservation Force. I wanted to have time and understanding and a foot in each world that GCF was going to be before I founded the organization, because I needed to find multiple specialist players that I could rely on once things started going, to be my ear and eyes for what we needed to change and adapt to. So ultimately in 2015, it took a full year of paperwork to get all of it done. And luckily, a very generous San Diego donor helped me get all the paperwork done and covered the filing fees, because I wouldn't have been able to afford it myself. And GCF was formally born. And of course, I returned back to the field, was back on specialized rhino protection duties, and was involved in not only just rhino, the key crisis was rhino, but there's all sorts of other poaching going on. We just got trained in the advanced tier of wildlife protection and worked from the top tier down. And from that point forward, we've expanded into 16 countries of support and projects.
To put in perspective, just so our listeners and viewers can understand the scope of what's going on, I mentioned in the first podcast that I was raised in Ethiopia. So late 60s, early 70s, we had 10 million elephants on the continent at that time. We have about 300,000 left. And the count I see varying between 25 and 30,000 rhinos. It kind of varies because one guy owns most of them in South Africa. What numbers are we talking about now with rhinos?
So one of the hardest things with rhinos in the numbers is there's a dispute originally on one of the censuses that happened in the Kruger Park. And it's basically how the ecologists did the mapping for land use. And so that's one of the things that you'll see in the fluctuations. But roughly speaking, in total globally, between all rhino habitats, there are roughly between 25,000 and 30,000 rhinos left between all five species.
In Asia, in everything.
Everything.
These animals are under intense pressure because of the Asian black market, the demand for rhino horn and the wildlife trafficking and the smuggling of this is one of the most heinous crimes out there. the rangers out there, especially in the rhino industry, they are equipped like a military operation. Like we're going to Afghanistan. I mean,
Yep.
you are equipped with AK-47s. You have the top intelligence equipment. You've got intel. This is not just going out and protecting some animals. This is a military operation, and you live and you breathe it. You are looking at this problem from all angles. You work in Asia, it's a different set of issues over there. You're working in Africa. And I just told the story yesterday about what you told me, and I think it was Mozambique, where poachers can cross the border to South Africa, kill a rhino, and get that rhino horn out of the country and probably off the continent within 6 hours. I mean, this is a streamlined operation of crime, the fourth largest industry behind drugs, human trafficking, and arms dealing. So we're talking about war. We're at war to save these animals. And what we love about your work is you are global, where Nsefu Wildlife, like you were saying, is localized. It's important, but we needed a global footprint. And that's where you guys come in and are so critically important. So where do you see things right now? How are things looking right now?
It's a mixed bag of successes and failures. Every year is hard because, we balance. The only thing that holds us back is how much funding we get. So for example, over the last several years, we passed the threshold of training and equipping 1,000 rangers on the continent of Africa.
Wow.
And that was like a landmark for us. And these modules that we teach are not just basic intake style boot camp stuff. It's taking a team that can be functional to being elite and efficient with everything they do. And safe. So that was huge for us. But this year we've just crashed and burned in our reach because of everything. But that being said, a lot of the efforts we got started since 2014 to now, they're running and moving and pushing forward. And overall, we are seeing successes in the last 6-year span, from more engagement from different NGOs, more engagement from different governments, more from the law enforcement and international trade background, more regulations and rules coming into play, and declines and changes in the demands for key species that are poached, from elephant to pangolin and rhino. And so there are still pockets of intense breakouts with poaching issues, but there is a positive trend in the bigger picture. If you're looking from the 30,000 foot view instead of the ground level, we are seeing better engagement and conservation overall. However, it's still a large ocean of trouble. And, each one of us is kind of like a ship in that ocean, and that how we approach things. And we're still in a very peak, like 11th hour type situation of saving wildlife, where we make or break it for future generations and ourselves.
It is a crisis. It literally, and extinction is real. So when people say, hey, what do you do with stuff with wildlife? I'm like, we're fighting extinction. Literally, not just saving a few animals, fighting extinction. It's happening. There is a mass extinction going on. And Global Conservation Force, you've got a horse team, you've got dogs, you've got guys who are like Navy SEALs, on the ground, and rangers. So you incorporate everything. What is your other than funding? What would you say is the other biggest thing that Global Conservation Force needs?
Usually it's the time, I guess is what it is. Time comes into play because we've grown our instructors' bastion of individuals every year, and the need is so big, and the reach, it's just, there's just so much to do. And you can't just take any instructor and apply them to the field. They have to be field ready, a field specialist in what they're teaching, and then their independent reach. Each course module is X amount of time. And so that's kind of the one thing that we feel like we're always racing time as well, because for example, like this year, missing now 6 planned training events for different units. That's just about 90 rangers that won't be trained this year, advanced course material. And
you said, and you and I had spoken a couple of months ago, and you said, I've got people stranded right now because of COVID. And we can't get them around. I mean, they're just literally trapped where they are. So the challenges are immense, especially, I mean, we have a local thing, but you're dealing with a global campaign, and that's really challenging. So, I'm going to hit it, and we're going to talk more here. But if somebody wanted to donate, globalconservationforce.com or .org is where they go.
Yeah, globalconservationforce.org. And then live updates are usually on our Instagram at Global Conservation Force and Facebook as well. Most up to date, and things change quite regularly for us.
Well, you guys have helped Nasefu. Vic will attest to it when I've got her on, because you guys, I met with Sally, one of your people at Global Conservation Force, and we got some camera traps. So whenever I get back out there, those will be going. You've helped with other equipment. And that's the amazing thing is when we first started, when Vic and I first got this rolling, one of our board members said, beware, because the nonprofits and stuff are very cliquey. And we're like, really? Aren't we all on the same team? And so, yeah, it's true. They are very cliquey and not really quick to help other groups. But what we love about you guys is, you were right there. Like, we're a year younger than GCF, but you've been right there every step of the way, just helping and showing up at events and, getting us some gear, which means so much to us, because literally we've been running this budget like on, $3 and a stick of chewing gum. I mean, literally,
that's
what we've been doing it on. And it's funny because you and I feel the same way. We have learned to take $1 and stretch it into 20. We are master with making things efficient and economic, man. You give us a piece of yarn and we'll build you a car with that sucker,
Exactly.
You have to learn to do that with not having much. You just have to be really, really creative. So when do you see you getting back out? I mean, you just waiting for the all clear on COVID, or?
So that's one of the hard things is I would have actually been back and working through several weeks of instructors courses already at this point, 2 times over in 2 different countries. But pretty much waiting for the all clear, because if I get stuck in Africa, it does hinder our admin side here as well, primarily for just some of like the core planning sessions where I actually have access to internet. I would guess maybe February, based on what the current embassy policies are looking like. That's probably going to be the soonest for me. But in the meantime, what we're doing is our key teams that are trained and operating, we're keeping them operational, but we also are moving into key specialist based training programs that we can still operate. So things like canine and field operations, some surveillance opportunities for wildlife traffickers and how they're getting stuck with their cargo in transit, and then working on specific courses with one of our key crew members stuck is our canine anti-poaching unit coordinator. She's stuck in South Africa, which is actually a strike of luck. It's a strike of luck, because our 3rd canine trainer came back just a week before the borders closed, and then they didn't let him go back to South Africa. So she went out at the same crossover time, and she's filled in the gap as the 3rd trainer, which it's a lot of work to train working dogs, and they're a person short. But it just happened to be the key timing. So she's now working on with our canine trainers and the canines themselves, and the units we support across South Africa, because she can't leave those borders. She's going around now, starting to work on modules with one of the vets that we're very close with in South Africa, and doing field first aid courses for anti-poaching canines, so that in the downtime of other courses, we're still running modules that we needed to get to.
You know, remember, I want you to flash back. Not so long ago, one of my board members, Beth Hill, and I went to one of your training courses. So
Yeah.
when you need a tracking specialist, I might be available because I won first prize in tracking. So just remember that you've got that arrow in your quiver. The Lewis tracker, professional tracker. That was a great thing. Now that's one of the things that you guys offer is training. So Beth and I went out with you guys, and you guys are like all military, you know, standing at attention, and you're showing us self-defense moves, like how to take somebody down by breaking their thumb. I'm like, oh my God, I love this stuff. I can apply it in life. So you guys like do it all. I mean, you just do it all. And you have such a great spirit, Mike. I literally, I tell you this, and I truly mean it. I am so blessed to have known you, that you walked into my life. And that's the beauty of what we do in conservation, is these amazing people are crossing into my life. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just in awe of these people. And I just feel so lucky. You know, we're in the toughest job in the world because we see the awful and the hideous and the just worst of everything all the time, and we have to push through that. But when you meet people who are passionate, who drop everything, sell everything they own to help the greater good, the defenseless, I mean, those are the kind of people I want to hang with. And I truly treasure you in my life, truly treasure you. And I hope you always know that. Take that to the grave, because I'm your biggest fan for sure. For sure.
Thank you, Co. I'm so happy we met too. And it was, it's funny you retelling that story, because I, you know, sometimes I forget like where the first point of contact was, and that was a pretty funny one. I remember.
Yeah, well, yeah, supposed to meet you, and I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, it was so awesome. So that's awesome. So I'm gonna have you hang on, because we're gonna be talking in a little bit, because I want to bring on my co-founder and co-owner, Victory Wallace, another hero in my life. Again, a story that is just kind of surreal, just God working in his mysterious ways. So I'm on the air at KGB, and I get a phone call, and this listener is named David, and he says, you really need to meet my wife. I'm like, oh, okay. He goes, we have a safari camp in Africa. We live in Dulzur. And I'm like, what? You have a safari camp? Like, you don't run across that every day on the phone. So fast forward, we meet, and I've met the woman who's going to be in my life the rest of my life. And I want to say hi to my friend, Victory Wallace. Hey, Vic.
Hey, Co. Nice to be on with you.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy Mike's on the phone.
Yeah, I wanted to, before you and I start, I wanted to tell people there's a great article in the Washington Post this morning about extinction, and it's North Atlantic right whales on the brink of extinction. But it gives statistics that people should know, that the International Union of Conservation of Nature, or IUCN, says that out of 120,372 species, 32,441 are on the brink of extinction. That's 1 in 4 out of 4 species.
It's overwhelming.
It's really something people should become aware of, because what we're doing is trying to save the world's animals, because these belong to all of us, and once they're gone, they're gone. And
I always say to people I meet, I say it literally tears my heart apart thinking about a world where your kids or your grandkids will never see these animals in the wild, and they'll only see them in a movie, CGI, or see them in a zoo, and a book, and some of them won't even make it to that point. And to that point, when Mike and I were talking about how this is an incredibly heart-shattering field to be in, a lot of people just have to walk away because they just feel like, I'm never going to make a difference. But the point is, when you do try to do something, you are making a difference. So
one person can make an amazing difference.
Absolutely. So you and I meet in 2014. You tell me about this conservation foundation you've started in Zambia. But first, before we get to that, the reason that started was because you and your husband toured Africa in 2005. And then in 2006, you're like, you know what? We want to do a safari lodge in Zambia. So why Zambia? And walk us through that.
Okay, well, we love to travel, and we traveled all over the world. But we were like most Americans. You think of Africa as one place. You don't think of Africa as this huge continent with 57 countries. So when apartheid ended, we started thinking, oh, we should go there. And we traded a timeshare in Hawaii for a timeshare in Cape Town and thought, well, why don't we see what's there? Just totally ignorant of everything. So we wanted to go on safari, and a travel agent gave us two lists. One was $20,000 for 21 days, and one was $5,000 for the same amount. And I said, what's the difference? She goes, you want to go to small camps and really see things where you're the only one at the lion kill or anything, or do you want to go in buses? So we did the small one. And the first time I saw a herd of elephants crossing a stream, my heart just dropped. Everything we saw, I felt like I'd come home, and that's the home of mankind's civilization, right? So when we came home the next year, it was, where do you want to go? It's Africa. Next year, Africa. And that time I said, why do we have to go home? Why can't we stay? And my husband's very honest, and he said, honey, we're too old to be volunteers, and we're not rich enough to have a camp. So that started me thinking, and I started looking online for camps. So the next time we went to Africa, this guide was driving us, and I said, that's a camp that was for sale. And he turned around, his eyes kind of lit up, and he said, oh, you're interested in getting a camp? Oh, it's easy here, which is the biggest lie in the world. And so
we
started working with this guide, not knowing that he saw us as idiots that were going to drop money, and he was going to pick it up, and then we'd be gone. We saw him as someone we were giving a chance to own part of a camp. So that went on for a while with him telling us we had land. We didn't have land until my son Damien and my husband David went over to find out what was going on, and found this guy had just sold one of our company cars. So that ended his participation, but Damien and David took over, met the senior chief, and he gave Damien land. Well, we thought that was incredible. Well, that's just the first step. There's many steps before you own that land. What we were not aware of was it was the sixth time he'd sold that land. And what happened was the hunters would then drive down with a Jeep full of AK-47s and say, we hunt here, get off this land. And everybody left except Damien, our son. He said, no, this is my parents' land and I'm not leaving. So that was a start of a 5-year fight between the hunters, and other camps don't welcome you. They don't want you there.
Yeah.
And the community wants someone much richer, and most camps are owned by corporations or rich families. So it took us 5 years to finally build a few chalets and open.
Well, that is one of the things that I think bonded us, is because I'm the daughter of a hotelier, and what took me to Ethiopia was my father was given a chance to open a little boutique safari camp. So from a very young age, I saw how incredibly hard my dad worked back then. And to see somebody else taking that challenge and doing it, and then hearing that that place has been sold 6 times, and then people are trying to shoot you off the land. And only someone like your son, Damien, could pull that off, because Damien's like this guy out of a movie. I mean, he literally is like out of a movie, this adventurer. And I can see him sitting there saying, okay, you want this land? You're going to have to shoot me to get it. I'm just going to sit here and eat some tuna fish. So take your best shot, because he wasn't going to budge.
No, and that's the thing people don't realize is during that 5 years before, we weren't going to build anything till we had deeds, right? You can't own land there, but you can have a 99-year lease. So during that time, he was living in the middle of the bush, closest tiny town, 45 minutes away, in a tent with lions cruising by, leopards cruising by, with eating canned tuna fish and salmon, drinking dirty water. And running terrible. Our first vehicles were really, really awful, and breaking down on the side of the road or on the side of the river. No, it wasn't anything like a movie would make. You get to land and suddenly it springs up, and everything has to be hauled in, and you're working with labor that mostly has a 6th grade education.
Yeah, and that's something we forget in the U.S. because everything's Amazon Prime. It's 2 days away, or can I get this? Or I'll go to Home Depot. Well, everything has to be hauled in. Everything.
And most things, you know, at one point we bought a bunch of hardwood to do the lodge floor. It turned out to be softwood. Damien went before a judge to get the money back, and he said, "No, you're a Mzungo," which means a white person. He said, "You have money. This man doesn't. So you buy more wood." It's, you know, it's very different.
So at that point, you're thinking, "What have we done? What have we signed up for?" But that's what makes it so exciting is that you had a dream that you followed through, even though things were thrown at you left and right, and you could have just said, "You know what? I'm done with this dream. It's too much." You didn't, because your love for animals was stronger.
But I think God had a lot to do with it, because every time we'd run out of money, something would happen. Like the Harris fire, it burned all these trees. And when the insurance guy was here, he told us, "Oh, it's $5,000 a tree." Well, that was $150,000 that went to Africa.
Woohoo!
You know, it was the craziest things that happened to keep us going. And and we got the title deeds in 2011 at Christmas, and Damien had called and said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm just done." And I said, "Just get on a plane. Just leave everything. Get on a plane." A week later, he calls and he goes, "They gave us a letter of offering." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "That's before title deeds." I said, "Damien, get on a plane. They're never going to give us that." The next week, we got the title deeds for a 99-year lease.
That's amazing. That is an amazing story, because I mean, you just aren't going to run into somebody who owns a safari camp in Zambia, like literally, like, "Hi, I live in Delzura. Oh, by the way, I have a safari camp in Africa." You know, like, what? I mean, that was what kind of blew me away. And when I first talked to you, I had talked about you on the air, and you offered me a free safari. I couldn't even understand how somebody could do that. I was so excited about it.
Well, it was your birthday.
It was my birthday. And so it just, that kind of stuff stuck with me. And so fast forward, you asked if I wanted to be part owner. And at first I was thinking, can I do this? Like, what? But then my dad was talking to me in my heart, and he's like, "Hey, you're the daughter of a safari operator." So I went for it, and it's been such a thrill. Yeah, not the best year to be a safari camp owner, in the year of COVID. Thanks.
No, but during the time I've known you, you've always jumped in when times were critical. And yeah, COVID was a nasty surprise, because we just started making money.
Yeah.
And we had finally gotten the camp building a camp is very expensive. And we finally got it to the point where we're really proud of it, and decent vehicles. I mean, at first we had vehicles that I would pray the whole time people were out that they would come back.
Please make it to the next destination.
It was terrible. And so we're finally all set, but we've put every dime we've made back in when COVID hit. So it's been hard. And because you came to the rescue again.
Well, that's just God working. But again, I wouldn't have gone into this camp if I didn't believe in it. It is such a unique camp, and it's not that I'm biased. I was going there before I even was involved, and it is a beautiful camp on the South Luangwa River. It's not with 5 other safari camps, and you see one lion, and then 5 vehicles pull up to see one lion. You're all out on your own.
30 vehicles.
Yeah, and you have Cheeky the elephant walking through, lions walking through, and true story. One night we're at dinner, and the radio goes off, and they're like, "Madam, you can't come home now." And you're like, "Why not?" "The lions, they're on your patio. Stay there." So we're like, "Okay, we'll just stay at dinner," because the lions are in the front of the house. You know?
That's very true. I mean, unfortunately, 2 nights ago, we had a new dog who was very, very crazy. Just started deciding he wasn't going to go in at night.
Mm-hmm.
And the boys contacted me, and he also wouldn't let anyone touch him. He was something a little bit deranged, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so what can they do? They can't touch him without him biting. I said, just try to up security and try to keep him safe. Well, 2 nights ago, he was asleep on the porch. The other 2 dogs we have are in because they know better. And the guy who was house sitting, one of the employees we have 30 employees. So one of the employees that's house sitting heard the scream, and a leopard took him right off the porch.
Wow.
So it is wild out there.
It is wild, but that's what is so beautiful. You have these beautiful chalets, and I'm so sorry about
and it's
Toy.
very safe. I mean, people are walked to their chalet at night by the security.
Sure.
Security walks all night long. But a dog is leopard's favorite prey. Most villages lose a lot of dogs every year. That, leopards are not, there's never been a man taken by a leopard.
Yeah.
But dogs, yes.
Yeah. So this camp is, we're hoping that some kind of season will happen later this year. It may not, but I already know that 2021 is looking spectacular because all this pent up energy, a lot of people want to come out and see Zacomo because it is really magnificent. And one of the people we want to get out there, of course, is Mike Veale. So
absolutely.
Yes. And, not only is our friend, but kind of surveying the situation.
So I think with 2021, what was so good about every reservation we had for 2020 didn't cancel, they postponed to 2021.
So awesome.
And so that's really good. But anyway, how I was going to go ahead and say how we got into being together on conservation.
Mm-hmm.
So every year that we were there, I did notice less animals. And, when we finally decided, the whole reason we wanted to do that camp was because when you're traveling in Africa, you notice only around the camps are there wild animals, except in the park. And that's a big safety thing for them. And so when they were disappearing, we decided we had to do something. And that's how you and I came up with Nestefu Conservation.
And it's been 5 years. And we have a group of people who think outside the box because time is not on our side with these animals. We have to think of things that are very impactful, that don't cost a lot of money. We have a ranger team that we've kept running full time, even during COVID. We just had to make the sacrifice. I know a lot of people weren't paying anybody, but we're like, nope, this is why we came to the party. We have to keep these rangers
and then
going.
Also, you and I think alike in that you cannot tell a bunch of villagers not to poach unless you offer them something else. So you and I were in agreement that we had to do 50% toward anti-poaching and 50% toward the community.
Yes, including education and economic opportunity. So tell the listeners about the economic opportunity that Nestefu has been bringing to the area.
Well, like Coa said earlier, we're operating on a couple of dollars in chewing gum.
Yep.
But we try. We actually pay payroll to 26 people, 10 rangers, 5 teachers, and the rest are people that run the different projects. The employment there is 90% unemployment. So this is a big thing that we employ these people. We support teachers because a lot of the schools have teachers that don't get paid by the government. We built a classroom. We're instrumental in getting sponsors to build the first secondary school in the area, starting with a classroom, toilets, and a borehole or a well. We have a sewing project where we have trained 7 women, and each year we were bringing on 5 more, but that will happen. The women right now that we have, we kept them, we're paying them, and they're making masks. And we're getting 5 more in September. And we buy the treadle machines because electricity is not easy. We have a beekeeping project. And the beekeeping project was really interesting how it came about, because I saw an article by Dr. Lucy King on how to help with conflicts between man and elephant. And she had found that the old way of doing it was to put beehives up, because elephants are afraid of bees. They have the big ears, and when the bee gets in, it's very bad. So they were doing bee fences, which is poles with beehives hanging in between. So when elephants come, it agitates that and makes it shake, bringing the bees out. So we're doing that now. We have started quite a few. I think there's 20 beehives on each of our bee fences, and I think we have 3. We're also, when we decided that, we realized this is a great economic opportunity because honey is very expensive and disappearing in a lot of the country. So it's a win-win situation for locals. If they can get honey off of it and they can protect their crops from elephants. So that's a big deal.
And then putting like the conservation clubs in the schools, it didn't cost us anything, but we went around to all the schools in the area. So they're aware of all the stuff we're doing. You know what I mean? We're trying to get the kids involved.
Well, you got to be honest about that. That wasn't us. That was by mandate. Because we're so small, we took on this little school, Chubwera, where the teachers for 3 years walked the 30 kilometers out to Zacomo begging for help.
Yeah.
So we took that school on, right? We built the classroom. And then here comes the chief. Well, you know, we love what you're doing at Chubwera, but there's 9 other schools. Well, 8 other schools. It's 9 total. And we're like, what? What are we going to do? So we have started helping them with game drives into the park. Most children have never been in the park, and it changes their attitude about what wildlife is, because they just know it as pests until they see what it's like for tourists and why at the center of all economic prosperity of that area are the wildlife. So, and also, you unfortunately weren't there when they put on this big conservation presentation for us as a thank you for different things that we've been doing. And they had these students from the 9 different schools perform a tribal dance. Then they did a play about conservation, and they get it. They really understand. And then they had, they each read a poem about conservation. And so we are involved in all 9 schools, but it was only because the chief made us, and telling him that we didn't have money was not an option.
Yeah, we love the chief. We just love him, but I can totally see him going, well, by the way, since you've got it in one school, how about, we love him for that. And we love
he's good.
Yeah, you know what? And he's been a big supporter, and having the chief, who is royalty. There's a president in the country, but they have royal divisions, and he is the senior chief. So we're really lucky to have him as a friend.
The chiefs are the conservators of the land, and each chiefdom, but he's the senior chief over all other chiefs, and he considered Damien his best friend.
Yeah, and Damien is Vic's late son, who had a tremendous impact in the Nasefu sector. He's buried in the Royal Cemetery, which is a great honor. And you just told me the other day, tell me about his festival.
Well, the chief this year, I mean, at the burial, there was over 1,000 people playing, singing and drumming and moaning and wailing. And it was incredible honor to him. The chief has decided that March 15th, the date of his death, to make he's calling him a wildlife hero, and it's going to be a holiday in the Nasefu sector. This year they brought school children out, cleared the grave, around the grave, made a pathway to it, and sang songs about Damien.
See, the impact is immense.
Yeah, and also in the park, one day the boys were telling me they saw Eland at Damien's Corner, and I said, "What? What did you just say?" And he said, "Damien's Corner." I said, "They have someplace named for Damien in the park?" And he said, "Yes," and which is another big honor because they don't name for any other person. Not even the chief has it named after his first name. And I asked why, and they said because Damien stood his ground. Amazing. And so the animals must stay on their ground. So it was a big honor.
That's a great thing. Did you hear that, Mike, that Damien is, he's so revered. He may not be with us anymore, but he's so revered that they're having a holiday, that they've got Damien's Corner. That is a true testament to the purpose of why you were put in Zambia. There was a reason. there's a reason for everything.
You know, without, I don't know one other person that I've ever met in my life that could have pulled off what he did.
Nope.
Stayed there, lived in the tent, and made that happen. There would be no Sycamore, which has 30 employees, which means 30 families are fed and their extended families. And there would be no Nasefu, which is another 26 people and their families. So he did a great thing in his life.
The impact is forever. You can never take that away. And I'm gonna bring Mike back in the conversation. Mike, you would have loved this guy. He was literally like out of a book. There should be a movie about Damien. I mean, like, can you imagine sitting there, you know, in a field saying, "Okay, take your best shot. I'm just gonna sit here and eat some tuna." He would like run across the heads of the crocodiles. You know, he was like one of these, like out of a movie kind of thing. He would have been your kind of guy.
You know, we dropped the motor from the boat in the Luongo River, which is infested with hippos and crocs. My crazy son dove in that river until he found that motor. No one else would do that, you know, but he said, I'm not losing a $3,000 motor.
I'll go. So, is this mic on? Is your mic on, Mike? We might have a mic issue. If you find
a mic issue with Mike?
A mic issue with Mike. They're trying to figure that one out. Hopefully he's going to come back. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You had to have this larger than life thing. And he kind of reminds me of my dad doing this kind of crazy stuff and all the things he went through, you know, trying to get back in Ethiopia. Oh, Mike, there you are. Mike and Mike. So Mike,
my mic's back online.
Yay, the mic is good. So, you mentioned earlier, Mike, when we were speaking, again, I'm speaking with Mike Veale of Global Conservation Force and my co-founder and co-owner, Victory Wallace, two of my heroes on the hero edition of Coexist here, Conversation for Conservation. And I want to I'm going to throw stuff at each of you because we understand the problems going on in Africa and around the world with animals. What are the things that our listeners can do right now to improve the situation, be it awareness, getting involved? Give me some things you think somebody could do right now to really impact what's going on.
So for starters, right off the bat, you can go to your Amazon Smile account and choose Nsefu and GCF as your beneficiaries. So while we're all stuck at home and doing most of our shopping online, that actually brings in a tiny bit of a percentage for us, but everything adds up. Also subscribing to pages like Nsefu and GCF where you get the information coming from the field directly. Our teams spend a lot of time milling through what's accurate and what's pertinent, not necessarily just the traumatic information that comes out. That way we can then respond with a post that says how we can do something about it. But then even consumer behavior can be changed. So it's interesting because, you know, like the local lodge situation, that story is just incredible. I mean, really, it's like I have met a couple other lodge owners in the same kind of boat, but like to really brave the wilderness and then like, you know, stake your tent there and just ride through it. That's what we've all done, metaphorically speaking and physically, in these projects. And to be part of the solution, you can book your next trip or vacation with this style of homestay and ecotourism funded effort, because like you guys mentioned earlier, you can stay with a corporation, and there are many big ones, and they do have a reach, but the impact is so much stronger when you go through the local approach. And whether that's buying sustainably made goods, like at home, every dollar you put into the system is a vote. So you're voting for a better future when you stay at like the lodge at Nsefu. You are choosing to better the future of an entire community, an entire habitat when you do that. And it's a direct impact. So when you go to the store, you know, it's as simple as buying stuff from your local artisans here. And that actually has an impact. being aware of things that are globally damaging. So certain species of fish and certain imported products that cause destruction and put money into the hands of people who then develop and destroy key wildlife habitats. Sitting as a consumer in America, there are a lot of things we can do just with our daily activities.
True.
If you want to be more involved, choose a campaign in these avenues of conservation that hits home with you, and use your professional skill set to donate your time. As Co and everybody knows, in our side of the world, conservation isn't held for just PhD researchers. It involves an entire community to make something happen. And so when somebody who comes forward and is a CPA and they can help you with your annual taxes, or someone knows marketing, or someone chooses to do a fundraiser campaign, or some type of food drive situation, whatever it is, all of those things are tangible here in the United States that can make us more successful in our impacts in the field. And, continuing on with education and being more in tune and in touch with what's going on, you'll find lots of ways.
Yeah, just being aware, just like opening your eyes and ears to what's really going on and thinking it through. If I buy this or do this, what will the impact? What will the trickle be? The trickle down. So really good, very valid points right there. And thanks for the Nasefu plug. We appreciate that. And the Zacomo plug. So Vic, what would you do?
Well, I mean, Mike gave a good list of things. I would say travel, is really key to people understanding other people and to seeing what's there and understanding how important it is to save it. And if you do travel to places that make a difference. Like he was saying, there's camps that are owned by multimillionaires and corporations, but most of their managers are, from other countries, and they don't put anything back into the community. Some do, but a lot don't. Like with us, all of our employees are Zambian. That's just the way we do it, because that's where we live and that's who we should use. We give $10 off of every person that stays there every day for Nasefu conservation to try to help the community. Our campground, we have a campground that when we die, we're willing it to the chief and the community for a community park. And until then, we'll use only people from Nasefu to run that and train them how to do it right. There's a lot of things that you can do when you visit places by seeing what's going on. You don't necessarily just give, you see what you're giving to. I remember the first time we were taken to give by a lodge we were at, and I said, well, wait a minute. All the women are working and all the men are sitting at that bar over there. Was that bar built by the money that your lodge people gave? And he said, yeah. I said, no. We'll bring food for the women. We'll do something. Just like we do, Co and I with the group do guns for food, because if we give the guys money, they're going to go drink. But if we give them food, it feeds the family.
Yeah.
And usually we're forced to do a little of both.
I mean, and those are just ways, impactful ways of making good decisions. And one thing I am going to say, and I won't name names, but with Mike and with Nasefu, there are a lot of big organizations that are all about the money, well-known names in the world of conservation, who have more money than I can even fathom, huge salaries. And I have to be honest, I'm kind of resentful, because I look at what none of us are making any money. I know you're not, Mike. I know Vic and I aren't. None of our board members, the only employees are over there. And I wish I could pay them more, but we just don't have it. If you are going to donate or support somebody, make sure that they are impactful and are doing it right and are not having elaborate board meetings. And, it really, the more I'm into this thing and the big names, I'm like, oh boy,
Well, aren't the statistics that 90% goes to organization and 10% actually gets used on the ground. That's what I've read most places, that they're so top heavy and they have all the golden parachutes and all. They're paying their board, but the impact on the ground, like Co's saying, is very, very small.
Kills me.
We don't take a salary, and we pay the local people who help run our projects because that's right to do. But Mike doesn't get anything, and I'm sure he won't retire rich.
I don't think any of us will.
We never got into this to make money. We got in because we saw something.
And I always say, if I get another calendar from the same company, like how many, you're going to send me 5 calendars from the same nonprofit, I'm good with one. You know what I mean? It's like, if I had the marketing budget of some of these people, boy, we'd have Africa just dialed right in. You know, GCF would be rocking. The CEFU would be rocking.
They should just have a checkoff box if you want all your money to go and help. You know, because sending this stuff, it's just such a waste because it doesn't benefit the ground.
Yeah, and so that's just my 2 cents worth. So impactful ways, impactful ways to feel like your hard-earned money is actually going to have an impact. Is it going to be helping save rhinos in Asia? Is it going to be helping train canine group, organizations and getting the dogs in the field? Is it going to be helping the NSFU Rangers? Make sure that donation is really going to count. And
make sure that organization has boots on the ground, like Global and NSFU do.
Yes, on the ground, making a difference. So, well, you guys, I'm so grateful for your time. That was so insightful, and you shared a lot of information about people who saw a situation and wanted to be the change in the world, and not just say, "Oh, wow, that's really too bad." You actually did something about it, and I applaud you, and that's why you're on my Heroes Edition. Mike, I hope to see you soon in this COVID crazy world.
Me too.
As I say, my brother from another mother, and I think the world of your organization, and thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting NSFU and me and Vic, and we can't wait for you to come out to Zacomo. And
I know, I've been so excited to get out there.
It's so beautiful. It is so beautiful. It's Vic and David did such a magnificent job.
It's a magical place.
It's a magical camp. It's magical. And Vic, I'm so proud to be your partner in this world of conservation and safari camps, and your integrity and your hard work and your dedication. I'm honored in my life. And there's your Belgian Malinois, Mike.
Yep. There's my
saying hello and wants lunch.
There's my boy. He's guarding the property here.
Like, I want to go get some lunch. So you guys, thank you so much.
We'll go right back at you. We both think the world of you.
Oh, well, thank you.
100%.
So again, globalconservationforce.org, and our organization is NSFU, NSEFU.org. And
the camp is the Como Safari.
Yes. So please share this podcast with your friends. This is our second podcast. It's Coexist. It's Conversation for Conservation. Spread the word.
And we want young people.
Yeah, we want people to learn, to get involved and be part of the answer for the world, because this world needs love and it needs help. And you guys, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And thank you to my friends at IQ Podcasts for being here and making me step into the world of podcasts. Please share this with your friends. We've got animals to save and we've got extinction to stop, and we need you on the team. So have a great day. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Co.
You got it. See you in a couple of weeks. She's showing off with her Nyanja.
Yeah, you have to learn.
I got to learn. All right, guys. Thank you.
Love you, Co.
Love you. Bye. Love you, Mike.
Thank you. Bye.